Do you ever think about who needs to get a federal tax identification number? Keep listening. This video will tell you about it, and it's going to tell you who needs it and what the reason is for it. Then in the next video after this one, we'll actually talk about how to get the tax ID number. So good to be with you today. I'm Michael Scott. This is the Video CPA. I'm a CPA with 45 years of experience, and I'm also a certified management accountant. And I bring you these videos each week. At least I try to get them out each week. And they're all based on tax and accounting type information. So I'm glad that you're tuning in. I want to thank my subscribers for actually subscribing to this channel. If you haven't done so yet, hit the emblem in the lower right hand corner. So today we're going to talk about tax identification numbers, and I'll tell you one of the biggest, I'll lay out one of the biggest problems that I've seen with tax identification, federal tax identification numbers, and one of the biggest mistakes that business owners make when they're dealing with these federal tax identification numbers. So stay tuned. Again, I want to thank you for subscribing. As you see on the first slide there, I do have a bonus for you that we'll talk about near the end of this presentation. So stay with me, and we'll get to it. So we've got a disclaimer now. We do receive affiliate income if you buy from one of our affiliates. Those affiliate links are actually in the description area of this video, and have a new affiliate link this time. It's Send Business. So if you are interested in setting up a corporation or an LLC, they can certainly help you with that, and their prices, as far as I can see, are very good. So go out to Send Business, or hit the link in the description column if you're in need of a corporation or an LLC. All right, we have our video CPA disclaimer here, the educational disclaimer. And let's talk about the federal tax identification number real quick then. What is it? It's basically a number that's assigned by the Internal Revenue Service to identify tax-paying entities. It's much like a Social Security number that you have as an individual. Problem is that the Social Security Administration doesn't collect Social Security from a corporation itself. It collects it from employees, but so they don't issue Social Security numbers to corporations or partnerships or LLCs, that type of thing. So these things are issued by the IRS, and they're issued primarily to follow these corporations from a payroll tax standpoint and from an income tax standpoint. They are necessary if you've got any of those type of entities. Now, why is it needed? We mentioned because Social Security numbers aren't issued, and so these the IRS has to have some method of tracking these different entities, these legal entities, so that they can pay taxes. And like I said, it's not only income taxes, but it's payroll taxes as well. All right. You see all these acronyms that we've got. We've got FTIN, TIN, EIN, and a lot of people ask, are these things all the same? Do they've got, they stand for different things, but the answer is yes, they're basically all the same. They're all issued by the IRS, and there is some confusion sometimes. I mean, a Social Security number might be called a TIN, for example, a Taxpayer Identification Number. But for the most part, a Social Security number is issued by the Social Security Administration, and the Federal Tax Identification Number is issued by the IRS. And so these three things, the Federal Tax Identification Number, the Taxpayer Identification Number, and the Employer Identification Number, all refer to the same thing. It's the number issued to these legal entities so that the IRS can track them. So yes, they're all the same thing. Now, I want to give you a bonus for watching this short video. What that bonus is a session with a business life coach, and send me an email at michael@bscottcpa.com, and I will make sure that Bonnie gets that email and contacts you for a visit with her about business life coaching. She also specializes with parents with older children and grandchildren. So send me that email and she'll be glad to contact you. The reason I need the email is because she has to have a way to contact you. I'm not going to abuse your email. I might email you once a month or something, every once in a while, but I'm certainly not going to sell your email or abuse it. All right, who needs to get a federal taxpayer identification number? First of all, if you're a sole proprietor and you do not have employees, you do not have to get one. You can use your Social Security number. But if you do have employees, and when I say employees, that's not counting yourself. You do not issue a W-2 or anything or withhold Social Security on yourself. But if you have employees other than yourself, you're going to have to get a taxpayer identification number or an employer identification number. Now, self-employed, like I say, they don't pay Social Security on themselves, so they have to file estimated tax payments. I'm going to do a video on that in the short future. So, self-employed, no employees, you do not have to file for a federal taxpayer identification number. If you're incorporated, that's either an S Corp, a C Corp, a B Corp, and some of you haven't even heard of a B Corp, but that's a benefit corporation that is in business similar to what a nonprofit organization is. They all have to have taxpayer identification numbers. They're separate legal entities and they have to have them. Partnerships have to have separate taxpayer identification numbers, as do LLCs. Now, there is an exception for an LLC, and that is a limited liability company that is a sole member and they do not have employees. If that's the case, they're treated like a sole proprietor and they're taxed like a sole proprietor. So in that case, as an LLC, you would not have to have a taxpayer identification number. But every other case, being an LLC, you would have to have one. Now, on corporations and stuff, you are an employee of the corporation, and that's why you need an employer identification number or a taxpayer identification number, because you've got to pay yourself. You can't take draws as a sole proprietor. You've got to pay yourself as wages and actually file payroll tax reports. And so that's why all corporations need one, and you will have to pay yourself something out of that corporation if you're making money. All right, some trusts need them, not all. If you have a living trust, that trust does not need a taxpayer identification number until the person that trust is formed around has passed away. Once they're passed away, they will need a taxpayer identification number. So you need to be aware of that. On living trusts, they're revocable for their lifetime, but once the individual dies, they're irrevocable, and at that time they have to file a tax return and they need a taxpayer identification number. Nonprofit corporations need one. Cooperatives need one. And one of the biggest problems, I noticed, I told you I'd mentioned this earlier, one of the biggest problems I've seen in my years as a CPA is that a business-changing entity structure needs to get a new federal taxpayer identification number. And a lot of times they will get that, and then they will continue to file their payroll reports under their old taxpayer identification number. And if you want to screw your payroll reports up in your payroll for about a year, 6 months to a year, you just go ahead and do that, because you've got to make sure that when you change entities that you're getting a new taxpayer identification number. That would go for a sole proprietor with employees, going to a corporation, a partnership going to a corporation, anything like that. So make sure that you do get that new number and you use that new number, and don't get it mistaken for your old number. All right, let's go to the next slide. That's it. That's what we're talking about today. It's a short video, but a good video, something that you need to learn. Like I say, next week I'm going to do a video on how to apply for the taxpayer identification number. So stay tuned in. Thanks for liking the video and subscribing if you haven't subscribed yet. do so. Thank you.